رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وآله الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه المنتجبين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد, السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. It's good to be back after such a long break, alhamdulillah. So just want to talk about a theme which I believe is extremely pertinent and something that I encounter, a sort of a struggle and a difficulty that I encounter from people who talk with me about their own sort of problems. Now I'm going to start off with a prelude. Growing up, I never understood God as someone who threatens or punishes or someone who was angry. These notions were extremely alien to my mind. God was the ever-present, the most beautiful one, the one that the heart yearned and the one that I wanted to be with. It was a very untarnished understanding of God. It wasn't even a parental understanding of God. It was just beauty untarnished. Someone who is there. You don't even need to think about. But then I remember as I came upon religion, this notion of God went through a transformation to a God who needs to be devoted to, a God who makes things wajib, a God who gets angry, a God who gives paradise, and a God who threatens and gives hell, and a God that was to be feared. And that was a very big hit to my faith when I went through that particular phase in my life. In any case, religious conditioning does prevail and it does impact the mind. But I remember within and internally, there was a huge struggle that I have lost something that was the truth, and I have been plunged into an alien state. Now, it took a good long while to come out of that state once again. And of course, Imam Hussein was a huge means for that re-encountering of God afresh. Now, with that prelude, let us talk about God and how we need to understand God, or maybe an alternative way of understanding God. You see, right now, I find that people are afraid, and they are afraid of dying. They are very insecure. This insecurity stems from their lack of comprehension of God. If I felt fear in my younger age, I would say to Allah, but you are my God. You are next to me. Allow me to overcome my fear. As opposed to that, God has become so distant that when we are afraid of things, we invoke the assistance of God by cajoling God or making pacts with God. And then we are afraid of God himself. You see, we feel that when we are going to die, God is going to be waiting for us and we are accountable to God, and we are petrified of that. So now, think about this carefully. When we are afraid of the world, we invoke the help of God. But when we are afraid of God, whose help do we invoke? We invoke the help of the Prophet and the Imams and the saintly figures. Effectively, and I want you to think about this, we have given the Prophet and the Imams that intimate status of God that God should have with us. But now God has become the other, and we need one with whom we relate so intimately that we can invoke and call upon to save us from God. Now, isn't that odd that we are going to die and we need the Prophet to assist us in front of God because God is unforgiving and Prophet is forgiving. See, things have gone wrong in our minds. Now think about it carefully. If I'm going to a court of law for maybe a crime that I have committed, I'm not afraid of the judge. The judge is impartial. He is sitting there. He will dispense with judgment. He will be presented with testimonies and proofs against me, and I will present my own defense. And the judge will preside over the case and decide. Now, at this point, I invoke God to be with me and say, Allah, be with me during this trial. Bring some clemency in the soul of the judge towards me. If I am guilty, then allow me to get away with a lesser charge. Help me in this. That is how we need to see God in the hereafter as well. To say, oh Allah, when I will breathe my last and begin to die, it will be a frightful event for me. I need you to be with me as I breathe my last. I need you to help me at that point. For that is the point where I need you the most. Oh Allah, religion has frightened me of the grave. But oh Allah, if you are the one that I relate to and trust in, and have placed my everything in you, then, oh Lord, be with me in that grave. If it is a darkened place, you make it bright with your light. If it is a lonely place, then I need you with me as my companion. If it is a frightful place, then, oh Lord, you are most capable. Remove my fears. Oh Lord, when I stand on the day of Qiyamah, I will be petrified according to the descriptions of the Quran. That is where I need you the most. Be with me, help me out there. When the judgment is given, I need you to influence the judgment in my favor. And if indeed I am guilty, then to lessen that judgment for me. And if I deserve hell, then you don't leave me. The last thing I want is to be afraid of you. Yes, I revere you. But at the same time, I need to talk with you. I've always related to you and I've bonded with you intimately. You are the one who is with me all the time. I don't need to pray in order to remember you. I pray in order to formally acknowledge your lordship. But aside from your lordship, you're always with me. Allah, you know that. I have no one but you. There is nothing in this chest other than you. How can I make you into the one who is one at a distance from me? Oh Lord, I need you to remove my fears, all of them. Allow me not to fear anyone. And oh Lord, allow me not to call on to anyone else to stand before you to plead on my behalf. For I do not want to give anyone that position that is yours with me. Yes, I do acknowledge, O Lord, that I will invoke them because they are beloved of yours, but not because I'm afraid of you and I want somebody else to intervene between me and you. No, don't create that distance between me and you. So this is the way to think of God, not God as the other, and we are petrified of, but God as the one who is a companion and who is there in our moments of need. So if we can get that right, then the fear of God goes. In place of fear of God, we replace it with companionship with God and reverence for God. Reverence for God is something totally different than fear of God. Yes, we go into sajda and we say, oh Lord, you are so mighty. You are so grand. that I feel a sense of nothingness in front of you. And every bit of me trembles. Even uttering your name is something I cannot do any longer because I know I can't reach you. But it is your grace and your bountiful nature and your all-embracing mercy that you allow me to forget that side of you. And instead you touch my soul with your proximity and your companionship. So yes, whenever the majesty of God dawns upon the mind, then yes, to tremble and to weep and to say, oh Lord, you don't need to tell me to do sajda. I'm in sajda to you. This forehead would adorn itself time and again in your love. Oh Lord, cut me into pieces and cut me into pieces infinite times. Oh Lord, that will be a great blessing for me and a great reward that you acknowledge me in that way. But God needs to be understood accurately. Now, in these lives of ours, you see, we've got God wrong. Why is God testing me like this? No, God is not testing us. God is there to help us through the test. It's so clear. It's like somebody who is sitting in an open book exam. They look at the questions and they start crying. Any sane man would tell them, don't waste time crying about these hard questions. You've got the book in front of you. Open the book and begin and respond to your questions. You see, we come into this world with all sorts of challenges. All of us, none of us are free. The Quran says, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. We have created man in difficulty. لَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِالشَّيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ. Quran says these things. We will test you with fear, with hunger, with anxiety, with loss. This is what you have bargained for in this life. We have to understand that we have come into this world with our circumstances, not because God has given us these circumstances on a whim. It's because either we have sought these circumstances for ourselves, or it's a consequence of something else that has gone on. And here is an opportunity to work through it and not to be deluded by the life of this world because we think it's an unending life. For all of us who are here today, who are over the age of 40, look back. How have 40 years elapsed? For majority of you here today, 40 is midway for the maximum life that you're going to lead. People like me don't have much to look forward to, but all of you who are 40 have no more than 40 years left. I hope you grow to be 100, but even 100 is nothing when you look back. How quickly are 40 years gone? Another 40 years will go. Why are we crying like this? Why are we in a state of despair and stagnated and blaming God and praying to God? You see, it's funny. We say, Allah, remove this trouble from me. Allah will say, I gave you the trouble because you asked me for it in order for you to grow through it. Now I give it to you. Now you say, remove it from me. How odd are you, O children of Adam? If God gives sickness to you, then trust me, even if you were to restore it with health, you will still die. You're not going to live. I think we better get that into our minds. You are still going to die. The only difference is that if you die without having the experience of sickness, then you've missed out of the experience and the growth process that comes through sickness. If God makes you wealthy like Sulaiman, you will still die and the whole world that you have will still go away. The only difference is that if God gives you a taste of poverty, then you will learn to understand what poverty is and grow through it and become needless of wealth. And that is the greatest wealth and attainment from within. So we need to re-understand God and we need to re-understand our lives here. We have sought these tests for ourselves. Now, the befitting attitude is to ask God to be with us as we go through these tests in these few years of life, which is 80 to 100. Lord, allow me to feel hurt so that my heart breaks. I want to feel what it feels to have my heart broken into thousands of pieces. I want to feel that hurt. And after that, to be able to forgive and become bigger than it, so that such events may not break my heart again, because I would have become detached from this world and reclaimed my own glorious status. Oh Lord, let people swear and curse at me so I know how it feels, the pain of abuse, so that this ego can diminish. And then after that, when people abuse me, I'm able to forgive them and say, I do not blame them. Lord, forgive them and give them a great reward for assisting me on my journey to change our perspective totally, so that every instance of difficulty we are growing and thanking God for the difficulty more than the ease. Because in difficulty, we find Him and we grow through Him and we attain our true self. Now just look at the great Hussein Salamullah alayhi. What a person. What a person. On the day of Ashura, we see that he is growing from strength to strength. The way his statements and his whispered prayers to God become more and more refined until the end, when he is radiating with the light of God. And what can you say to a man who says to Allah, I thank you for your good trials upon me? What can you say to a man like that, who has grown through that experience? Now, had Imam Hussein not faced the scenario of Ashura, for sure Imam Hussein would not be what Imam Hussein is today. Had Imam Ali not been struck on his head and then said to his son Hassan, untie your captive, who was his assassin, Imam Ali's greatness would have remained concealed. But at that point, we see how this man reveals the truth of his inner godliness. The Blessed Prophet, had he not had so many enemies, people swearing at him and cursing at him and constant hunger and fear and anxiety, you would have not seen him emerge the glorious way in which he emerged. Look at the Blessed Prophet in Makkah at the commencement of his journey, and look at him in Medina at the end of his journey. What a phenomenal transformation in that person. But all of that came through difficulty. Now, the Prophet did not beg Allah and say, why me? He thanked Allah. And he said, oh Allah, if you are with me, then I will be able to grow through it. And on the other hand, the Quran says, well, we might just kill you. He's not even giving him the satisfaction of knowledge that, no, I will assist you throughout, but I'm with you. The Quran says, I am with you, but worry not of tomorrow. I might kill you. I might give you success. Your job is to be with me, find me, and get through this life. So I finish here that God is to be understood differently, not somebody who's waiting for us on the day of Qiyamah to punish us and to torture us. That's below God. That is below God. In this world, God should not be used as an agent to come to our help when we bribe him. That's wrong. God is a constant companion who assists us through the trials of life in bringing about the best in us given our strengths and weaknesses. God is the one who stays with us as we breathe our last. God is the one who accompanies us into our graves, and God is the one who is with us when we stand for judgment, not only the one who sits there on the throne dispensing with judgment. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Shaykh. If anybody has any questions, they can use their the raise hands function or message me. Shaykh, I have a question from someone. It says, how has Allah differentiated between Rahman and Rahim? I understand one is a special mercy, but why differentiate at all?
So, from what we understand of these words and the deliberations of our masters, is that Rahman is all-embracing mercy for one and all without discrimination, in this world and in the next world, for all, one and all. But Rahim is the mercy that pertains to the inner being, which is the soul. So God looks after all and nurtures all and cares for all. But as for those who tend to God meaningfully in love and companionship, then God increases the inner light perpetually. And that is why it said that He is Rahman of the dunya and akhirah, and He is the Rahim of the dunya and akhirah. But He is the Rahman for the outer and Rahim for the inner. So that's how we have understood it.
Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, Rahman, go ahead.
Salam, Shaykh.
So,
Thank you for that. I actually never looked at the aspect that God can be our companion on the day of judgment. You know, I think that's something I really need to sit with. And for me, when I heard you say that, my mind right away went to, what about the Jalali aspects of God? Like, for example, his attribute al-Hakam. How can I reconcile that with my mind?
So I'm going to be talking about this in Muharram, but I'll just give you a slight insight into it. Imagine you have a father who is also a judge, who's also a king, who's also a friend, and who's also your best, and your companion and your friend. Now, as a judge, he's going to be impartial. As the king and the legislator, he is going to have his majesty. You will not be able to approach him in his capacity as that grand emperor and the king. As a father, you will be able to approach him. As a companion, you'll be able to talk with him. Now, one relationship that you have with him that transcends all relationships and influences everyone is the companionship one. When you stand before the judge, you can't appeal to your father because he will say, I'm not your father at this point. I am the judge and I need to deal with this case justly. As His Majesty, he will say, you're not even allowed to talk with me until I permit you to talk with me. But as a companion, you will be able to reach out to him in the variety of his aspects. This is one explanation that I give.
Thanks.
Yeah. Because companionship is to do with the inner being, yeah?
Thanks, Shaykh. Anybody else has any questions?
I have a
Then-
question.
Sure.
Assalamualaikum. Is it better to beseech Allah directly or do we go through wasila? I'm always confused about that.
No, you try both. Both of them are fine. The point I was trying to make was that sometimes we give the position of God to other than God because religions have somehow distorted our relationship with God. So you see, you need to, as a human being, have a free hand. At a point you feel very close to God and you say to God, but what wasila should I place between us? And at other points, one can feel at a distance from God. And at that point you can say, oh Allah, I give you the wasila of your Rahmaniyya, of your Rahimiyya, of your forgiveness. I give you the wasila of your blessed Prophet Muhammad and his family, the wasila of your beloved angels. So it depends on the mood at the time when we approach God. But the best thing is to have the presence of God with us at all points, and it comes with time. At all points to have his presence with us. Imam Hussein says so beautifully in his dua Arafah, he says, "Oh Allah, how can I articulate my intention through words when you are already seeing my intentions?" And that's the most comfortable position to be in, to say to Allah, "Oh Allah, you know what is within me. Right now, it is not something wholesome, it's something quite ugly, but you know what is within me. Be with me and help me." That's the proximity. But in any case, yes, we do give the wasila of the Blessed Prophet and the Imams and the names of God, and one as courtesy, and two when we feel a sense of distance from God. Yeah.
But sir, but isn't it that in the Quran it says that no intercessors? What does that mean?
So the Quran says there will be no intercessor except by the consent of God. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So Allah leaves that. So the Prophet said that I have the right of intercession. So we can understand it this way. You can say to Allah, "Oh Allah, look, I deserve this punishment. I really do. But I'm going to ask your Prophet to formally bail me out." That does not mean that you are not my companion and that I don't love you blindly. It's just that it's a formality of the day of Qiyamah. Just like there's a formality in a courtroom, the judge says, "Look, I want to absolve you of all charges, but I can't. You have these problems. Now go and get somebody to bail you out, and I will allow that." But that doesn't mean that the judge does not love me or that the judge hates me. No, God is my companion. But there is some formality on the day of Qiyamah as we have in the courtroom. I'll be explaining this in Muharram to an extent.
Okay, because in some communities they say that their religious leader will hold their hand and take them inside Jannah. So
I think all religious communities have this belief, and inshallah it will be true. Why not? Inshallah, everybody's leaders will take them into paradise, but I wonder who the one will be who God takes into paradise. How blessed will that soul be?
okay.
Doesn't Quran say, "Khudi fi ibadi, wadkhuli jannati"? Enter within my creatures, enter within my garden. How beautifully Allah Himself says. Yeah.